Hey, real quick before we get started, Content Matters with a Z is our content marketing company that helps entrepreneurs tell their own stories to those who care. And here's the thing, we think every entrepreneur that is willing should have their own content platform. And we want to help make that happen, both by working directly with entrepreneurs and by sharing our own stories, exploring the craft of content marketing. Content Matters, one piece of content at a time. Learn more at kazcontent.com. Welcome to the podcast, Entrepreneur Perspectives, introspective podcast conversations helping build and protect your business one podcast at a time, a KazCM production. In this episode, I chat with Mort Fertel, dad and CEO of SudShare. SudShare's mission is to create a marketplace for laundry that improves the quality of life for millions. Mort has many years of experience in entrepreneurship and relationships, so this conversation is an opportunity to learn about building a business based on personal need, the good and bad of family businesses, and the gig economy. And with that, we welcome Mort Fertel. When I see someone who's in the laundry business, like if you don't take any time and dive into it, you might just assume like, okay, well, that's a natural competitor to this other business that I know is in the laundry business. And as you find out, as you're in business more and you do some of this research, you realize that well, actually not, because there's so many entrepreneurs out there and these companies that are creating their own niche inside of an industry that could have been around for 100 years. And yet, well, where's the competition? Well, maybe there's not any competition. Maybe the competition is someone's time and what they do or some other activity that they're doing. And so I see your business in SudShare and I'm fascinated because, well, first of all, let's just dive into like, tell me what is SudShare, and listeners should understand like, what is it that you all do?
Yeah. So SudShare is a marketplace for laundry. On one side of the platform, we have our customers who outsource their laundry to us, free up hours of their time each week. They just tap the app and they're done. We pick up the laundry, wash, dry, fold, and return it to them the next day.
Okay.
And then on the other side of the platform are our washers, who we call Sudsters. And they turn their laundry room, their washer and dryer, into a work from home gig. And the key there was the work from home gig. Like that's what makes it really unique as opposed to DoorDash, Uber, Instacart, et cetera, where everybody's got to be, sort of out on the road. SudShare is the first manual labor work from home gig in the world.
Wow. I like the word Sudsters. Like there's like an action. It's something that it's like a community almost, like you belong to something. And I think that's something people can get behind. How does someone become a Sudster?
Very simple. They go to SudShare.com. They click join the team. And there's an onboarding process. They have to create an account. Then they go through a whole training process. It's through the app. It's written content as well as videos to watch. And they have to pass a test, demonstrate that they understand our processes and procedures and policies. They also have to do an identity check and a background check and make sure that they're good, clean people. And then that onboards them onto the platform. And then when there are orders in their area, they're notified and they can accept the order.
Okay. What is the major risk that you have with that, right? You're doing as much as you can on the front end. And this is like a lot of businesses. If I have a salesperson that works for me and he comes to your office, I have risk in that maybe he misrepresents the brand or does something the wrong way or treats people incorrectly. I think of Uber, right? At the beginning with Uber, what do you mean? I'm going to get into a stranger's car and they're going to drive me someplace? Like that seems crazy. And there was a lot of that, right? People would say those types of things. I'll never do that. Well, okay, until you do it, right? So, but at the same time, you can still think about it. And there's been issues, right, with Uber where things have happened and there's always going to be problems. All of a sudden now, I'm taking my laundry, right? In some respects, it's very personal to me or to someone's family. And someone is going to take that laundry and they're going to now take it to their house. And you can stop me. So like, let me stop there. Who's picking up the laundry from my house?
So the Sudster is doing it all. They're picking it up, they're washing it, drying it, folding it, and delivering it back to you. So you're dealing with one Sudster for the entire order, and you have direct communication with them the entire time through the app. And the app also gives you automated updates. Your laundry's been picked up, your washing is in process, your laundry's been weighed, your credit card's been charged, your laundry's been delivered. Like throughout the whole process, you're constantly notified of the process. But to answer your question, you're essentially asking about quality control, which is an excellent question. And there's no short, simple answer to the question. We actually stacked a number of innovations on top of each other in order to deal with this, because it is a significant issue. And of course, if we can't succeed with this issue, we don't have customers. So ultimately, the proof is in the pudding. We're now in over 300 cities around the country, and we've scaled this nationally. And obviously, in the beginning, people said exactly what they said when Uber came out, like, I'm not getting in someone else's car. And when SudShare started also, like, giving my laundry to a stranger, like, what are you, crazy? But quickly, people get over these things when they see that it works and that there are quality control measures in place. So what do? At the risk of being repetitive, there is that whole training process that I explained. There is the test that they have to pass. There is the background and identity check. And then the big thing we have is we have a very, very low tolerance policy. So we monitor every order very carefully. In addition to that, we have a rating system where customers at the end of every order rate our Sudsters. And the rating system, the way it works is only the competent Sudsters stay in the network. We're very, very low tolerance. As soon as we detect any sort of an issue or a problem, that Sudster is purged from the system. And as a result, even though we have like 20,000 Sudsters throughout the country, there are actually a small group of Sudsters in every city that do 80 to 90% of the orders.
Okay.
And we designed the system that way. We designed a system, it rewards the best Sudsters. They get pushed up to the top of the ranking. Those Sudsters get access to all the orders first. And that way we have the most reliable, dependable, experienced, highly ranked Sudsters doing the most number of orders.
Okay. Someone's starting off as a Sudster, right? They just learn about it. They listen to this podcast, let's say, and they say, oh my God, this is a fascinating idea. I want to get involved with it. Sometimes when you're not first, it's like, oh, you're last because you're way down in the algorithm and you're not going to be able to get back up.
Yeah.
Do they have an opportunity to prove their value and over time grow up to becoming someone that's going to be featured at the top?
Yes. So first of all, it depends on when we broke into that city.
Okay.
So if you're in, for example, Baltimore or Washington, D.C., one of our first cities, it's going to be much tougher to break in. If you're in a newer city, a city that we're only more recently in, it'll be easier to get in. But in any event, you're going to get a chance. You're going to get a chance. And the key is to hit a home run when you get that chance. Like, don't mess it up. It's not hard. It's not hard. We make it very clear what our expectations are and what our customers expect. So if you follow the rules and you follow the procedures and you do what is expected of you, the chances are very good you'll pass with flying colors. You'll get a 5 out of 5 rating. Your customers will like you. That will push you up. Then you'll get more chances. Do it again, push you up. You get more chances. It just goes on each other.
Yeah. It's clear that you all see the risk, the concern that the consumer is going to have, and they're worried about it. And I've even heard you talk about this, that there's this trust, right? At the end of the day, it's just, if you're going to get in my car, I'm going to drive you somewhere, there has to be some level of trust. And then that trust maintenance doesn't start off at the top, but it's close. And you can earn your way up. And I even heard you talking about people are finding money or diamond rings. No doubt. Like, I've left credit cards in my pocket and it goes somewhere. I'm like, I don't know where I put my credit card. And then my laundry gets returned back to me and there's a credit card in a Ziploc bag with a note in it, say, hey, I found your credit. Like, you've seen that before. And
hundreds of times.
That's a level of, like, all of a sudden, that's a different level of trust to say, oh, wait a second, I can trust these people.
Yeah. Yeah, and the other thing is, once you get comfortable with a Sudster, you can select them as your preferred Sudster.
Okay.
Which, it's not a guarantee that you'll get that Sudster again, but it's much more likely. So there's also unlike Uber, there's a familiarity element that is also very comforting for the customer. And by the way, it won't surprise you to know that the number of times that a Sudster is selected as a preferred Sudster is factored into our algorithm that affects the Sudster's ranking. The more times a Sudster is selected as a preferred Sudster, that is an indication to us that this Sudster is liked, trusted, desired, and we want to push that Sudster up in the ranking.
Yeah, I think that's great.
That's just an example. There
Absolutely.
are dozens of sort of triggers in the system with the algorithm that detect the quality of a Sudster that either pushes them up, down, or out. I mean, as I said, we have a very low tolerance policy. Any indication that a Sudster is late, is not doing things properly, is not responding to customer messages on time, they're out.
I get it. You're only as good as if you're going to be an app, right? If you're going to be an app in the Apple Store, and I go and say, okay, well, let's see what this is all about. What are their ratings? And you have two apps in there from both sides of the equation. It better be highly rated. If you show up with a 2.3, it might be like, you know what? I just don't want to do it, which you're not, right? I believe you're high fours. And that's super important. I mean, you definitely run the risk if a SudShare gets kicked out and they're going to throw some shade to you guys, and all of a sudden you're going to always have some negative people out there. But you've proven it that, okay, this is going to run through coding. There's going to be an algorithm. We're going to have an app. They're going to make it as easy as possible. Well, that app better be good, and it better have really good ratings with a decent number behind it. If you have this many people out there, if you're going to show up on a podcast and talk to people about it, it has to play. And it does have that. And you've obviously putting a lot of attention to those details to make sure that that's going on. Is that like, obviously the philosophy, and I heard like your wife was like doing all this laundry, and you have 5 kids, and your one kid's like, I'm not going to help you do laundry, but I'll create an app. And you're like, what does that mean? Right. And so that sounds like the idea and the coding is really the epicenter. And then the people right behind it on both sides of the equation, that's the epicenter of SudShare. Is that right?
You're right about the origin of the idea. My wife, we have 5 kids. We homeschooled them, and she was buried in laundry. And this is 2017. And she's like, this is crazy. I can tap an app and get to the airport. I can FaceTime someone on the other side of the world, and I can deposit a check without going to the bank, but I'm still doing laundry like my mother and grandmother did. And she's right. Technology, amazingly enough, has not touched laundry. And yet laundry is the most time-consuming task of the entire week. And so, as you mentioned, my son wasn't too into sorting whites from colors, but he was a bit of a tech geek. He said, hey, Mom, I'll create you an app that'll solve your problem. We thought he was kidding. He wasn't. And it turns out it was a lot more than my wife that liked the app. And that's why we are where we are.
Yeah. You see this all the time, right? You're like, I have this problem, and it could be in a business, and I want to create something to solve this problem. Well, that problem that you just solved for yourself becomes the problem that you can solve for many other people, and thus a business is born. And on the other end of it, what I think is amazing is there's this gateway that you've created for other people to be an entrepreneur, to join the gig economy, which is people then can work from home. You know what? I'm home. I'm doing things all day. I don't like, some people actually enjoy doing laundry, right? Like on one end of it is like people, I hate it, or the dishes or whatever those things might be. They're good with it. That's just part of their process. They enjoy it. It's relaxing. They listen to a podcast, whatever they want to do. So there's that. Look at, okay, well, let's bring those people into this equation. To the people that don't have the time, don't want to do it for whatever reason, all of a sudden there's this gateway that you've created for people to become entrepreneurs. And I hear yourself described as a self-described serial entrepreneur. You've created many businesses along the way. You have a business background. Is that something that you saw to say, wait a second, I think I can open the doors more to this gig economy and give more people a chance?
100%. We feel really great about both ends of the platform. On one end of the platform, our customers, they love us. They're sometimes hesitant with the first experience for the reasons that you mentioned, but we love when we get responses like, oh my God, I am never doing laundry again. Like, I was skeptical, but this is unbelievable. My laundry came back, folded so nicely. And our Sudsters write handwritten notes. And it's just a very nice experience. And all of a sudden people realize, like, I don't have to be burdened by this task of laundry anymore. And then on the other side, the opportunities to work for Instacart and Uber and Lyft and all these places, everybody knows about it. And they're wonderful opportunities for lots of people. But what we feel really good about is we're giving people an opportunity that they wouldn't otherwise have. Because there's a lot of people that need or want to work from home, but they can't do that because they're not knowledge-based workers. They can't work behind a computer. So here is a manual labor work from home opportunity. We have lots of single moms. They need to be home, but they also need to earn income. And it's very difficult for them. And this is like the perfect fit. And they appreciate us so much, which gives us so much pride and fulfillment in giving this opportunity to them. And then, as you mentioned, there's another sort of type of Sudster we have, which is, this will sound strange to most people, but there really are people out there that love to do laundry. There's not a lot, it's not a big percentage, but we don't need a lot of them. If we have a dozen in each city, then we have like a great pool of people that really love to do what we need them to love to do.
Yeah. Well, it's hard because if someone's out there and they said, I want to create this laundry business, there's so much that goes into that, right? As you know, sometimes it's never been easier to start a business, also never been harder to start a business. And there's so many moving parts to it. So what am I going to do? Well, all of a sudden I could leverage your platform And I'm really good at laundry. I'm really good at folding clothes. I'm very reliable. I can drive in my car and pick it up and drop it back off and do it in a timely manner. But if you were to tell me then I have to do all the other things that come with it, that changes it. Now it's like the fun's taken out of it. Well, now you're allowing me to do the thing that I do enjoy, enjoying the gig economy. And I think it's amazing because you're right. So much of it is to get on a computer and go do these 10 hours of work for me, do graphic design, build a website, whatever that might be. This is different. And I think it just opens a door because I've always felt like, well, time is such an asset, right? Obviously, I've thought about like, if you don't want to do yard work, you can pay someone to do it. And someone will say, well, that's a waste of money. Yeah, but what if you get to spend that time with your kids, or you get to read a book, or you get to go do what you enjoy to do, or go back to your office? That is what you're freeing up on the other side. So we play both sides of it. That's an amazing thing because a lot of times it's just the one side of it, but you're giving it really on both sides of it.
Yeah, 100%. We're working on creating a commercial right now. And the first line of the commercial, it's not done yet, so it's not finalized, but the first line of the commercial is, what would you do if you had an extra 2 to 3 hours a week?
Yeah.
That is the question for a SudShare customer, because now you can have an extra 2 or 3 hours a week. All you got to do is tap the app and it's done. It's never been easier to do laundry.
Yeah. Well, in that, we were talking about at the beginning, there's laundromats, there's other companies, people are trying to innovate in the laundry space. I don't see this though. And for example, for that other laundry service company, I don't see what they're doing. So I think there's like these niches in it's a laundry business. Okay. They've been around for many years. It doesn't mean that you can't create a business within these archaic industries, long-standing industries, that you can go and create a business inside of that's unique and has very little competition and has a place. Is it for everybody? No, but it doesn't necessarily need to be. It's for a lot of people. And that's a good thing. There is a lot of people in this country, right? So there's that opportunity. But I think you've seen that to say, we have something here and it is for the right person that wants to take advantage of it, right? And you're in an industry that there's a lot of, there's laundromats all over the place. But I don't see that as your competition, really.
Right. A laundromat is not our competition. To use a laundromat, you have to go to the laundromat and do your laundry. So here, that's not our competition. We're a full service laundry service. Pick up, wash, dry, fold. All you do is tap an app. The laundromat is for somebody who doesn't have a washer and dryer and needs to get their laundry done.
Yeah.
We actually are taking business from laundromats because some people have used us that use laundromats are saying, gosh, for a couple extra bucks, why would I go to the laundromat and spend all of that time? But most of our customers are not laundromat customers. Most of our customers are people that have a washer and dryer at home. They just don't want to be bothered.
Right. They want those extra couple hours. That's what
they want those extra couple hours.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You build this business, and I've heard you talk about this. I was interested in it because someone who is in a family business, you could sit there and say, this is the way to go. Everyone should be in a family business and all that. Well, I love it because I do believe things pull in opposite directions. Because on one end, great idea. On the other end, it's possibly a terrible idea. Maybe the worst decision you can make to be in a family business. And it's your wife and 3 of your kids, right, that are in this business. And there's probably a lot of good in that. And there's probably a lot of, oh my gosh, what are we doing in here? And you have a background in helping people with their marriages, right? And you understand the relationships, you understand the dynamics, the moving parts, the day-to-day. There's so much happening in that. What is it like now having a family business with not just one other family member, with 5 total family members?
Yeah. 4.
4, in total, right?
Oh, well, no, actually, you're right.
Yeah,
you're right.
yeah. To do the math, right?
5. I don't really include it was my wife's idea.
Yes. Okay.
But she doesn't really work with us in the business on a day-to-day basis anymore.
But she's reviewing everything, right? She's like the one at the very...
Okay. We talk about things all the time. She's like like a consultant,
Yes.
But anyway, it's a fascinating question that you're asking. You hit on 2 sides of it, and both sides are accurate. And I'll address both sides. I'll try to do it briefly. So on the one hand, it's amazing working with my kids. I love it. As kids get older, as parents of older kids know, you have to work harder to find ways to stay connected to your kids because they begin to develop their own lives and they're not living at home and the connection is not as easy and natural. When you work together, you have this ongoing natural connection, which creates this natural portal for interaction. And that's wonderful. That keeps me involved with my kids and talking with my kids. And you never stop parenting. In the business, there is like even on the website, if you go to the business, my title is Dad and CEO. And that was intentional. I am the CEO, But I also really am their dad. And they look to me, I think, in both of those roles in a business setting. And so it's like a new chapter in fatherhood. And it's very nice. And I'm very proud of my children, the roles that they play in the company. Thank God we work very well together. My kids are all very different. They have very different superpowers. They have very different roles in the business. It's not competitive or jealousy. We all really work very, very well together. It's also one more point on the positive side. When you raise a family, or at least for us, we always had these lists of family values, these 10 family values. And growing up, we looked for many opportunities to cultivate these family values. And we always returned to those family values. And now, running a business gives us the opportunity to demonstrate to the kids that those family values are not just values that you cultivate and manifest in the home, but they are values that are designed to be taken outside of the home also, for example, in a business. And so it's really a wonderful opportunity to show them how there's a consistency, there's an integrity with these values, that they're not truncated from the rest of our life, but that they bleed into our entire life. And with all the decisions and issues that come up in a business, it's just a beautiful opportunity to demonstrate that these values can manifest themselves here also. Having said all of that, I don't want anybody to get the wrong idea. This is going to sound contradictory, but please allow me one moment to explain. I would never recommend to anybody that they go into a family business. And I know that sounds completely contradictory to everything I just said, but I'll tell you why. Thank God we've had an amazing experience, but I've been exposed. I've seen situations in family businesses that are a disaster. And from those situations, I've seen that it's impossible to predict if and when things will turn bad. And at the end of the day, these relationships are precious. And it's just not worth it. So then you might say, well, so why am I doing it? Because I made the decision to do it before I realized what I just shared.
Wow. So you came to this. Yeah.
But thank God, everything is good.
Right.
And because I have witnessed what I've witnessed now, I'm even more careful than I even otherwise would have been. But if anybody were to ask me, should they do it? I would say, no, it's not worth it.
Yeah. The discovery that you just went through, right? After starting this business. It's like SudShare is still learning. The algorithm's still learning. You're picking up cues as to like, what's a good SudShare, what's not a good SudShare. And that's going to change over time. No different than like started a business with your family. All of a sudden you're in this, you're reflecting, it sounds like, which doesn't surprise me based on your background. You're reflecting on these moments. You're reflecting on being a father. You're reflecting on your kids being older and they're in the business and decisions you make and conversations that you have to discover that this is probably not for everyone. This is not for most people, but you're okay with it now because you're thinking through it, right? This is a lot to think through because the day just goes, right? And you think about the different relationships you have in business and the day goes. And I can imagine like if you're doing with family, like there's very little time to turn it off and then turning it back on. And who knows what can come from that. And then the next day just comes and the next day and the next day. And things aren't going well in the business. And there's probably so much that you have to take in on that and worry about with your family. And it might not go well. And I guess you had said something earlier in the conversation. There's no short, simple answer for any of this, right? For this conversation, for what I'm trying to say right now, because I don't know exactly what that is. But it's fascinating because you see like family businesses, you see the good and you see a lot of the bad. And I think it's great to have someone like yourself out there who's been around, who's had businesses, who's now working with a family to say, this is not for most people. I would recommend you do not do this, but I'm going to keep doing it.
Well, again, I'm in it.
Yeah.
Right. I'm in it and it's going well.
Right.
Right. But I've just seen things and these family relationships are too precious. It's just not worth it. I mean, if you're mother and son, if you're father and daughter, if you're husband and wife, if you're brother and sister, those family relationships you don't get to choose. And they're important, really important to the quality of our life, our legacy, and everything. Working together, Nobody has to work together. It's not a mandate. It's not even something that is so important. So why do it given the risks? And again, since deciding to do it, I've been exposed. I've seen the risks and it's scary. And so I know it sounds a little confusing because here I am in this business with my whole family and it's going great and I have nothing good things to say about it. And if somebody were to ask me, should I start a family business? I would flat out say no. And by the way, it's important to note, sometimes a business goes badly and the family relationships are great. Sometimes the business goes great and the family relationships are a disaster. They're not necessarily in sync with one another. The trouble in a family relationship is not necessarily in line with how the business is going.
Yeah. What about exits? I'm not saying that you're going to go sell SudShare tomorrow, but there's different types of exits in a business. An employee wants to leave. A leader wants to leave the organization. A leader passes away. Things happen, right? And so you have a family business now. And one of your kids might say, hey, I want to move to California and I want to do this and I got this opportunity. And I'm not saying you know what that answer is right now, but that's an issue with family businesses is you have legacy, exit planning, right? You have decisions are made and someone just doesn't have the passion for it or they have a new passion for something. Who knows what's going to happen? But we do know, like you said, business is going well. Things change, right? For a lot of businesses, just in the last couple of years, obviously with COVID, things changed. For some people, there might have been actually some positives in their business, and for others, there wasn't. Things are going to happen walking down the street, sprain an ankle, someone calls you up with some news, whether it's good or bad. Things are going to change. Do you think through that as it relates to family businesses a lot and understanding that there's individual people inside the organization that make up the organization and those individuals have decisions to make and things that they're going to do as it regards to exits and all of that? Is that on your mind? Is that something that you've probably seen it before in previous businesses or other ventures that you've been involved in?
Yeah. We haven't given it, in terms of exits, we haven't given it a tremendous amount of thought because it's really not relevant right now for us. I mean, we're building and we're growing very quickly. There's a lot changing. We just are not interested in an exit right now. Interestingly, we've had a recent entrance, right? So my son Nakshon and I, we're really the co-founders. And for years, we've been working together to build the business. Recently, like let's say about 9 months ago, we made the decision to scale nationally. Prior to that, we were in like a handful of cities and we were still tweaking the algorithm and perfecting policies, procedures, and systems. And we were intentionally staying small in order to really perfect what we were doing. Late last year, we got to a place where we felt, okay, let's go national with this. We're ready. That's, by the way, one of the reasons why I'm on this podcast. Like prior to last year, we were trying to stay very quiet, under the radar. We declined invitations to interview. So we started scaling. And thank God it went very well. I mean, here we are, I don't know the exact number of months, but let's say 6-8 months later. And we went from being in a few cities, a handful of cities, to now we're in over 300 cities around the country.
Awesome.
I mean, we scaled very quickly and very successfully. And so you can imagine, I mean, like 100 times, 100x, the business in less than a year. So we invited, actually, I invited my other son, Moshe, who is Nakshon's, one of Nakshon's triplets. They're triplets, to join us in the business. So that was a whole discussion. That was a whole family discussion. What role is he going to play? What's he going to be paid? What's his equity position going to be? Because he's not a co-founder and he wasn't in this with us for the last few years. And he's playing a different role. So that was an interesting discussion and an interesting period, which thank God went very well and very smoothly. Moshe is not trying to be a co-founder. He understands that Nakshon started the business with me and he understands that they have different roles and different equity positions and he's good with it.
Yeah. Those are real conversations to have. And it's a couple of things too one thing is that it's not relevant today as far as some of the questions that I was even asking. And I think that's in itself an answer is that here we are. This is our focus right now. Like we have aims, right? We have large aims, but right now, what's our main focus? And all these other things that could come our way, we're ready to take those things on. And the focus right now is this conversation that we're going to have with our other son. And we're going to bring him in the business because there's a lot of dynamics in that, right? Because there could be a child out there that's like, no, 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 I want equal share of everybody. I'm a part of this family. And who knows where that could lead to, going back to your last point of this family relationship that you're going to have inside of a business is very dicey that some businesses might have.
Yeah, I'll share with you another interesting point that relates to what you're asking, because it's a great question. This is why I see myself not only as the CEO, but also the father.
Yeah.
Because I think that to succeed in business and in family relationships requires not only competence, but also character. And that's my job as a father, is to continue to help my children refine themselves as people and develop their character. And the more substantial a person is in their character and their character traits, the more likely they are to be able to be successful in their relationships. And so when these questions come up, for example, should we bring Moshe into the business? How do we handle that conversation? And how do we handle that in terms of division of responsibilities? The more substantial a person is, the less flaws they have as people, the more likely it is that that's going to go well. And so I'll tie this into one of our company values, which is not exactly, but relates to some of our family values. Our number one company value is that I am not the boss. God is our boss. And that's how we run our life, and that's how we run our company. And when those kinds of values govern your behavior, so then you're much more likely to have a smoothly operating business and also a smoothly operating relationships in the family. By the way, not only in the family, but we have a relationship with 20,000 SudSters around the country. Now, that's a different kind of relationship. It's hard to make it. We really try to make it more personal. I'll give you an example. A couple of months ago, we had a SudSter, our top SudSter in Las Vegas, got into a terrible car accident. And I took a day off and I flew to Las Vegas and I spent the day with him, just visiting with him and talking with him. And I brought him a little something. And I met a couple of other SudSters there at his home. So we hung out with him. And I just felt like it was the right thing to do. And we're a family business and I wanted him to know that he's part of our family. And like, to me, that reflects the difference between SudShare and these multi-billion-dollar companies like Uber and Instacart. And that's not a criticism of them. I mean, I realize the CEO of Uber probably can't go visit one of their drivers in Las Vegas. Maybe it's not practical. I don't know. But I mean, there are 9,000 other things I could have done that day also. But I just felt like that was reflective of what I want this company to be about and how I want our SudSters to feel about us.
Yeah. That's fascinating that you did that, and it stands out. And I appreciate you sharing that story. How is the driver doing today?
It was a bad car accident. You know, in terms of his life, he's going to be fine.
Okay, good.
And in terms of health, he's going to heal. It's like a 2-month healing process. I actually recently heard from him, and he said he's almost there and he'll be back.
He wants to get back at it. Yeah.
Yeah, he's ready to take orders soon.
Yeah. Well, I have 3 kids myself, and talking to someone like yourself, because the impact that you can have, and sometimes you could say, okay, well, if you are going to be in business with your kids, well, that's just like you watching over your kids more. You get to have more control over your kids. And obviously that's not the case, because one of the first things that I saw is you say, each one of these kids has a superpower. They have these specialties, they have these interests, they have these passions, and like, it's amazing what they can come up with. Like, what we can learn from our children is amazing. I could just watch my youngest is 10 right now, and I could watch her and be like, I never thought of doing it that way. Or they might come up with an idea in any one of my kids. And that's something that allowing them the ability, like your son coming up with this idea to say, well, I can build an app. Let's do some coding and let's create a business out of this thing. It's like, well, if you never asked him, or if you just said, well, that's just a silly idea, why would we do that? You're just a kid. What do you know? You're not doing that. And you just happen to be in business with them at the same time. So you're allowing them to play a real role in what they do, and not like you're helping give guidance as the father, but you're allowing them to do what it is that they need to do. And they're going to make mistakes along the way. And that's a beautiful thing. And so are you, right? So are all of us. It's just something for me to even think through and reflect on after our conversation about how you are working with your kids and how you allow your kids to do these things, because I see it in that same way. And it's fun to watch someone like yourself and your family to be out there and having these types of real conversations with their kids. And guide them along, but at the same time, allow them to continue to flourish in whatever it is that they're passionate about.
And when we give our kids that kind of freedom, when we empower them in that way, like, you can do this and I'm going to get out of your way and let you do it, that translates to them as, wow, Dad really believes in me. And that, I think, helps them cultivate a self-esteem and confidence. It's really important as they go out into the world. And I really do believe that. I mean, look, SudShare has 2 apps, one for the Sudster, one for the customer, and all this back-end technology that connects the two. There must be, I don't know, hundreds of thousands, millions of lines of code. I didn't write one of them.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, my son created that entire thing, and that is his superpower. Moshe, just in the last few months, we have this private Sudster Facebook group. I am not a social media person. Truth be told, I hate social media. And by the way, if you Google me and see all my social media channels, you'll say, what is Mort talking about? He's got 40,000 Facebook followers and all this stuff. So let me just be frank, my staff handle all that for me. It's a business tool, and personally, I'm not involved. Anyway, this private Sudster Facebook group, Moshe started it, and I didn't quite exactly understand it and how we were going to utilize it and how would it be helpful. And now we've got 20% of our Sudsters are voluntarily, they don't have to, are part of this Facebook group. And the activity is I can't believe the amount of activity on this Facebook group and how much they support each other and answer each other's questions. And there's this sense of community, like you were mentioning before. And I look back on it and I say, wow, Moshe did that. It was his idea. It was his implementation. I don't know anything about social media. And he's doing the same now on Instagram and TikTok. And so it's important as parents to believe in your kids and to give them the space to fly in ways that they want to fly. And of course, depending on the age, if you're a mother or father, they have to be supervised. And of course, also in the context of a business, I'm the CEO, I'm ultimately responsible, and I have to be aware of what's going on as well. But it's important not to micromanage.
Yeah. Well, to believe in them is one thing, but tend to actually allow that to take place. It's something totally different. You can say you believe in someone, but then giving your son the keys to be able to do this and then get out of their way to do it. That's something different, right? Because you can do that and you could still be looking over their shoulder and be like, well, what did you think about this? Or you should change that to do that. No. It's if you believe in it and you let it go. And like you said, that allows the confidence to allow them to give them the space to make that mistake. And
that ties back into our family values. Though, see, in our world, in our family, in our life, there's no dichotomy there. There's no distinction between what we say and what we do. In other words, in a certain language, the etymology of the word belief comes from the word craftsman. Why? What's the connection between a craftsman and faith or belief? Because we believe as a family that what we believe is articulated in the vocabulary of our actions. It's about what you do with your hands, so to speak. And so to say, I believe in you is, I'm not going to say it's completely meaningless, but it really doesn't mean much unless how you live and the way you treat this person is consistent with what you're saying. And so it's not, we could say anything. In fact, I would say it's more important to do it. And whether you say it or not is really not important. Let's say, for example, love. I love you. Well, you can tell somebody, I love you 1,000,000 times, but they may not feel love. Because if your actions toward them are not loving, they won't feel love. Doesn't matter what you say. On the other hand, if you treat somebody in a way that demonstrates that you love them, you don't ever have to say it.
Yeah. This is why it's fascinating to have someone like yourself with your background to talk about these things and these relationships that you talk about all the time. And like I said, in your background, and to be doing it in business and to be doing it with your kids and to talk about it and to share it and to have content, to be on this podcast and share these stories, because it's not just about laundry. It's way bigger than that. Like you said, what would you do with 2 to 3 extra hours? Maybe it's go out to dinner with your wife or hang out with your kids or who knows what that is. And that's why there's more depth to it. But it is appearing and it is creating content. And I've thought about these as there's coding or technology, and then there's media. You have the coding, right? Your son who's created this. You created this algorithm. You have this. It's this thing can work. while you all are working on other things related to the business. And you got to obviously update the coding. And then you pair that with the media, the technology, the branding, the website, the social media. Again, it is just a tool. It just happens to be a prominent tool today. How important, obviously, are you seeing it? Because you clearly see the coding side of it and you built a business around that to then also partner that with the media aspect when you are ready to say, we need to tell some stories. We need to create some content. We need to appear on podcasts, maybe write some blog posts, have some Facebook pages and all that. How important is that content for you as an entrepreneur? And you've seen it over the last, few decades to say things have changed and you don't have to go to the Channel 2 News anymore. You just go right to you get featured. This podcast could be up and running the next day if we wanted it to be. It's amazing what it can do. It's also scary, right? There's the other side of it and there's definitely bad sides. And I agree with you on that. But it's a fascinating thing in that you're now partnering the coding and the media. Are you seeing that as these two driving forces for your business and saying, this is significant leverage that we have?
100%. I mean, look, we're not a laundry company, we're a technology company. But we also have, just like any company, there has to be strong messaging and there has to be strong marketing. I mean, you've got to get the message out that, look, this opportunity exists. You can save 2-3 hours a week and you don't have to do your laundry. Just tap the app and it's done. You can work from home and make some extra money and it's great quality of life, extra income gig. So that message has to get out there. And you can have the greatest technology in the world, but if the message is not out there, nobody's going to use the technology. So we really do have to marry those two. No pun intended. That's what we're working on.
Yeah. Well, Mort, I appreciate, like I said a little while ago, the depth of what you're creating, the family relationships, the opportunity to bring people into the gig economy. You're opening this, like I said, the gateway to entrepreneurship, to start something, to free people's time up. It's fascinating when you'd reached out, and I was fascinated by the family dynamic first. And as I got to dive into it more, I got to learn more about you and then the business and where we're going and just these different opportunities that exist in people who have these minds to say, what else is out there? What else can I create? What other conversations can I be having to just think through it? And I'm fascinated just by learning by it. Say, okay, what are they up to? I'm in. And if nothing else, like you have someone here to said, we do our laundry, but we've used different companies and I'm fascinated by what you're doing. We're going to give it a shot. And that's just, it's one at a time, right? Because like you said, it's just that driver you had in Las Vegas. He's one of many people inside of your community, but it's one at a time. And I'm sure you've had many other one-off conversations. It's like, yeah, you want to scale the business and that's great. But I've heard this constantly. It's just one conversation at a time. It's like I say, it's like one podcast, one piece of content at a time. I can't get lost in, I'll get so overwhelmed if I start thinking about what's going to happen. No. It's just this conversation and then reflect on it and move forward and go back and who knows what comes from it. And that's the beauty of it. Like there's the obvious known and then there's the unknown that I couldn't have, like you reached out to us. I couldn't have said, what is SudShare? I didn't know. Well, now I do know. And I'm glad I do. And this has been a great conversation.
Yeah. And for wannabe entrepreneurs that are listening, I think it's worth, I know I shared the origin of SudShare, but it's worth remembering that SudShare at the end of the day came from a personal need. My wife with 5 kids was buried in laundry and it was relentless, as everybody knows. So it really came from a very personal place. That's the case of SudShare. And that's the case with a lot of great businesses. And so if somebody is an entrepreneur and they're looking for a business opportunity, first thing to do is to download the SudShare app, tap Do My Laundry, and free up a couple hours of your time. And then the second thing to do is to use that time to think about what's wrong with the world? Like, what problem do I have that I need a solution to? And how can I solve it and solve it for others? And very often that's the launching point for great businesses.
Yeah, that's so true. And Mort, I appreciate it. Thank you. Obviously, SudShare.com.
Yep.
Place to go, get started. Like you said, go to the App Store, download the app, take a look. Yep. We'll put all that stuff in the show notes. But Mort, thank you again for your time, your wisdom, your experience, and these stories. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me on.
One of my favorite things about CADSource is the opportunity to chat with amazing business leaders and entrepreneurs. We hope you enjoyed the conversation. If you want to connect, you can find me on LinkedIn or visit us at CADSource.com. Thank you for listening to this CADSource production, Entrepreneur Perspectives, building and protecting your business one podcast at a time. Play my cards right. Up the ante, one blackjack on Content Matters with a Z is our content marketing company that helps entrepreneurs tell their own stories to those who care. And here's the thing, we think every entrepreneur that is willing should have their own content platform, and we want to help make that happen, both by working directly with entrepreneurs and by sharing our own stories exploring the craft of content marketing. Content Matters, one piece of content at a time. Learn more at CasContent.com.